share what your thinking is. This is what actually the meaning. Most movies have single protagonists, and occasionally there are two who work in tandem, as Balaji sir was saying about buddy movies. There are two characters who are equally important, but not exactly equally important. There can only be more or less one protagonist in a story, in a feature and film, or a screen that works. Why? Because the time is limited for the protagonist to be identified, and the inducement for the audience, engagement for the audience to identify the protagonist and empathize with him, you have limited time. So that's a very, very important thing. And even more rare are ensemble films in which there are many protagonists. You would have seen this recently. There is a Vijay Sethupathi anthology films, where you have a 2 hour or 2.5 hour film where there are 5 stories. So there are 5 protagonists, but all compressed into this 2 hour and 40 minutes. So you have a blanket identity in which all these 5 protagonists may identify certain aspects of that theme. There is a Malayalam film called Kerala Cafe. It is 10 movies with 15 minutes each. It is about 10 different stories of 15 minutes each. But there is a blanket connectivity. All this happens in those who are assembled in that cafe. The movie, pardon? Okay. We have seen a BMW movie. There are 9 movies made for that BMW movies. 9 different movies are there. I'll show you one other movie later. But the point is, it's all about that car. And stories are different. Then comes the next one. The antagonist, again, with the protagonist, the antagonist will initiate the conflict or create the situation that forces the protagonist to respond. So generally, the protagonist has to be really, really proactive. Otherwise, the story won't exist. When especially there are 2 ways of igniting the protagonist into the film, is the opposition, which you call the antagonist, will initiate the conflict and create the situation that forces the protagonist to respond, for which the protagonist has to be really, really proactive. The protagonist must drive the conflict from the start through, though he should be forced into reacting. Though he is forced into this reacting to the antagonist. Why there is the antagonist has to react to the protagonist is, antagonist is always a good guy. When we see recent films, that protagonists are not entirely positive, or they are, I would say, neutral in many ways. Let it be. But when compared to the antagonist, he is more positive. That's how it is. In a movie like Dawn, Shah Rukh Khan is a negative guy. But he is positive more positive when compared to the 2 other or 3 other Dons which he is fighting with. So the positivity is always, so what I'm trying to say is, we are always dealing with a morality, and a positive response to morality is the audience's basic conduct, or the base of movie watching or analyzing the morality is, we support the positive morality and negate the negative morality, dislike the negative morality. So this is to be considered. The next one. Supporting roles are exactly the next one. The antagonist is the person, place, or thing standing in opposition to the protagonist. That is the antagonist. So it can be a character, a person, a character. It can even be a place. That's what I say. The world of story, I would say, is a very potential antagonist. The world of story. Because the world will react always negative or oppose the, the protagonist. Uh, and one more thing is place or thing. The thing can be, you watch this movie called Alien. Alien is a thing. Or it can be a tornado. It can be an earthquake, other than the place. So these are the three things which can work in opposition to the protagonist's goals. The subplot characters and reflexive characters are different from supporting characters. So this is something that we discussed a little bit earlier. I'll just run through what are reflexive characters, apart from the protagonist. See, when you discuss the morality of a society, it is so vast. And you are discussing the goodness about the morality of society in present day. This may not be completely or successfully handled with one character alone. Because one protagonist cannot entirely consume, or we don't have the time to discuss it with just one character. So the writer will place another character which is the extended protagonist. But he still will be the protagonist. And this, a certain element of the morality, positive sides of the morality is discussed with this reflective character. So he actually reflects the protagonist. This is called reflexive characters. And their functions are to compare or extend the objectives of the protagonist. So when it comes to subplot characters, they compare something that the protagonist goes through, they compare it. Subplot is to compare with the protagonist. And reflexive characters actually extend the protagonist. So this is what the difference is. The next one. Reflexive is something you look at the mirror and you can see the reflection. Those are reflexive characters. The character and context. So this is again very important. For characters to take dramatic action, they must be in a situation of the story where something is at stake. So this is a very important proximity for a great story. Very important. So what is a stake? What is a stake? Risk from what? Not exactly. I think it is the risk of not achieving the goal. If the goal is not achieved, of course, the antagonist will be there part of it for not achieving the goal. But if you don't achieve the goal, what will you lose? This will be a great, great influence on the protagonist to pursue the goal with fervor. Yesterday, I think I cited an example with this young lady that she wanted to pass this Viscom because she wanted to be an art director. If she has to be an art director, why should she be an art director at any cost? That is something important for her story. Otherwise, it won't engage the audience. So whatever we make as the audience, protagonist goal, it has to be very strongly motivated that he cannot afford to lose it. If he cannot achieve that goal, what will he lose? Probably he will lose his entire family. Probably he will lose his life. So these are important factors for your story to be absolutely engaging. And there are more than one option for them so they can make decisions. So unless you have options to make decisions, the protagonist may not have enough possibility for the audience to take unpredictability into this story. If he does this, this will happen. If he does this, this will happen. If he does the other one, the third one, this will happen. And the protagonist will have to make a choice, and the audience will be engaged. Which choice is he going to make? which is unpredictable for them. Or if at all he makes a choice, the audience may know this choice is not going to work. Then the engagement increases. So this option has to be given by the writer to the protagonist. The strongest dramatic action from a stray point of view, from a story point of view, are those that cause another character to take another action. So the stronger dramatic action, what I'm saying is, I told you the earlier example fits well. You are an athlete, you have a great stake if you don't win the race, and you have another person who can do the same quality of running and the fastness of running. So his win is unpredictable. This is how we, so this is what Aristotelian outlook of placing characters into context will make the dramatic element work. So these are all pawns that you create, or a character that you create in contest with the protagonist's goal. So this is how it works. And the next one, cause and effect, stimulus and response are the building blocks of any story. So one other element, that's what I say, when protagonists are proactive to the antagonist stimulus, this proactiveness will cause and effect. So as I told the other story, I wanted to marry Rose, and Rose had 4 hefty brothers, muscle men. So the moment he realized, they realized that I wanted to marry Rose, he comes and beats me up. I don't retaliate, but I'm wounded. I'm in a hospital. I'm not proactive yet. So what I do, after I come out from the hospital, I go to one of these brothers and slaps him. He is angered. And he has given an ultimatum, within a week he is going to kill me. So I have a great risk. So the proactiveness actually gives a cause and effect. So what I do, I go to a police station and make a complaint. Again, proactiveness, the cause and effect. And then I realize this police officer is a good friend of this guy. Effect. So this actually moves up to make the grave conditions of crisis from one to the other. So this is how generally the engagement goes. When you learn structure, we'll contest this a lot more. Character elements. There are 3 elements that comes with the traits by asking a series of questions about the physical, the sociological and psychological aspects of the character. There is a character worksheet available. When you start working on a protagonist or a character's, your other characters too, antagonist also can be worked this way. There is a character worksheet which you just try to fill up the traits of the character so that whatever and how he is going to react, how he is going to go with the cause and effect relationship, from the stimulus of the antagonist, all this can be worked within the context and within the character traits. Character versus characteristic. This is again something that we need to understand first. There are tools in which you create characteristics. Sometimes they coincide. The characteristic and the character will coincide. What is the characteristic and what is the difference as you think? What is between character and characteristic? Why don't you say for a while?
Characteristic is like the behavior and character is the person.
Persona. So these are, sit please. In a way true, because the character is the sum total of experiences of his baggage. That is the character. It has been through or as she was saying earlier, it can be a genetic note. At the same time, it also has culminated over years of living and experiences. That is the sum total of our character. But out of that character, I just develop a kind of physical conditioning or an external conditioning of my body language or certain expressions that come by. Let us say um, I get angry fast. It becomes a trait, it becomes a characteristic. So when somebody sneezes, I get angry. For example, I don't get angry when somebody sneezes, but generally you can make a character like that. There are characters who are actually affected by the sound of choppers. And there is a movie, Clint Eastwood's character Firebird, there is a movie like that. Clint Eastwood has a characteristic of getting giddy when he hears a chopper sound. That comes from his baggage, from the character who was actually a chopper pilot and was completely in Vietnam for 7 years, and he has seen atrocious conditions of war. And he has this great ghost-like characteristic that evolves, that he gets giddy. This will coincide at one point. So as the character moves to the climactic conditions of the story or context of the story, he is supposed to take an F-16 from Russia. And that is a very modernized airplane that has been done, and Russians have actually stolen one of the F-16s, brought it to Kremlin, and they were actually trying to find the nuances and technology of that airplane. And this guy is supposed to bring it back. He also hasn't yet gone with the F-16 flight, and he doesn't know about it. So he goes to the cockpit and starts the engine, the two engines. Suddenly it sounds like a chopper sound. So the character and the characteristic is giddy. The characteristic actually is coinciding to make drama. So this is how generally we can make these coincide to make a better contextual drama. Reflect the inner self. So the characteristics actually can reflect the inner self. So the giddiness is the external manifestation of his inner self over a period of about 20 years. We all have that. So the second is be a mask of disguising it. So these are two characters. I may have there is a movie called Usual Suspects. It's a wonderful movie. In that, the major character has a limp. He walks like this. He limps. And he tells a story that he has had this accident, and he cooks up a story. So the whole entire story is about his life. It is something like what we see in Hitsa, the movie, Tamil movie. The whole character is telling a lie, and we are actually seeing this movie, whatever he lies. So the lie is the story. And when, in the end of the film, that Kevin Spacey's character walks straight and moves on, then you realize this characteristic was a disguise or a mask. This is how we realize it. So it becomes a surprise for you at some point. So that's about it. And needs, motivation, and stakes. So these are important things for you need to clearly define for your character. What are needs, what are motivations, and what are stakes. The more fervent the needs are, the better the motivation. So every motivation is triggered by a need of yours. Maybe it is a physical need or a psychological need or a financial need, or whatever be the need, a social need or whatever it is. So we'll go to what is missing in the character's life is the need. So what this young lady has told about, she wants to become an art director. What makes you want to become an art director? There has to be a need supported by a motivation. So the need will be your motivation. And that motivation drives you fervently to achieve that goal. So this is a great relationship. When you are doing your 12th standard, you are all from 12th standard, right? 11th standard. So that there is no board exam for 11th. 12th, you have a board exam. So what is the need for you to get good marks in a board exam? What is your need? Not study. The need is something which is triggered, which is something missing in your life. Good marks. Good marks has a lot of relativity to that. So to achieve good marks, you have a great motivation to do something about it. That drives you to some action, to fix a goal and achieve it. The greater the missing element, the greater the need. And the next one, the greater the motivation, the greater the resulting action. So this is for a character very important. If it's just superficial, the character will be there in your story. It won't have the necessary or the required dramatic engagement with the audience. That's one thing that I realize. The next one. The key to understanding motivation is to look at it from the character's point of view and not the screenwriter's point of view. So you place the character in a context and you need to create a need for him which is undeniable, which is very great, which is super. And based on that, you need to make a greater motivation. So this is how it is. The stake is what the character is likely to lose if the character doesn't achieve the goal. So when you don't become an art director, what will you lose? Very important. So when that loss is unavoidable and great, your story will have a lot of impact. So these are things which you cannot miss in your storyline as you derive or define your characters. And then characters' limits of self-knowledge. Do we have limits of self-knowledge? No? Of course, yes. We don't know certain things that we have or have not. You may not know your immense talent which is hiding in yourself. Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we don't know why you are not doing it, certain things. Why you are afraid to do certain things. So basically, these limits of self-knowledge has three crucial elements which are drivers for this self-knowledge. One is called the flaw. The character doesn't know an error exists. When she realizes it, she changes to correct it. So the character can do this. Then the character will change. Make room for more drama. The character is no more the character was. A clear example is in Wall Street. There is a Charlie Sheen's character. He will do anything for money. He will do anything. He loves money so much, he will do anything to gather money or get money. At some point of time, a crucial point of time, he realizes he has something called avarice in him. Avarice is a quality, is a psychological angle to humans that they love a certain things or obsessive condition for certain things called money. When he realizes it, he wants to change it. When he changes it, he draws a lot of enemies. Because all his friends who thought he believed he'll do anything for money becomes his enemies. So these are the conditions to flow. Ghost is a character who does know an error exists, but he cannot recover from it. There is a slight change to it. Here, I don't know what the error is. When I come to know what that error is, I try to change it. The second is, I have an error I know, but I cannot come out of it. It is something like I told about this Clint Eastwood's character in Fiber. He knows that he will get giddy when he comes to a chopper sound. He cannot come out of it. It's beyond his control. And then comes internal conflict, which is more or less a behavioral dependence, like drinking or smoking or going into dependent on some kind of drugs. These are all dependencies. I know that an error exists, I can come out of it, but I don't hope to come out of it. I can always come out of it. There is a movie called Verdict, an old film. I think you would have seen that movie. It's about a lawyer who is absolutely alcoholic dependent. And he has come up with this opportunity, a great option, because he is absolutely power stricken. He doesn't have a job. He has a lot of debt accumulated on him. He has to do something. At that point, he gets a job. He wants to fight a case. And if he has to fight that case, he has to first come out of his alcoholism. Only then he can win. So there is this catch 22, a great scope for conflicts. So it comes from this internal conflict. The next one, character's arc. I think everyone knows what a character's arc is. What is a character's arc? Oh, it's already there. The change or growth of a character during the story is called a character's arc. So a character at the beginning of the story, through the events of the story, changes. That is why you have a